is my head, so I will do what I want, not only to my head but to my life. And that's exactly where most people go wrong when they go to a baba or go to a mentor. They expect the mentor or the baba to tell them what to do, and that actually does not empower them, it disempowers them.
You are listening to Inner Shift podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to my podcast. My name is Santu Nandi and I'm your host for the show. Each week I interview people who bring transformation in their lives, create a massive social impact, and help us to produce an inner shift within. Today's guest is someone who spent 21 years in Indian Army in counter-terrorism team, later on which inspired him to work on human behavior and psychology, be it individual or organizational. His coaching really helps thousands of people to bring real-life transformation. His in-depth evidence-based research opens the door of new perspective and possibilities. His body-mind wellness program already helped many people to overcome their prolonged diseases. He is a master of analyzing human behavior, and recently he has launched his book named 2 Steps Ahead. Today he is going to share some insight about his work as a human behavior analyst, along with human behavior, communication, and many interesting facts. He is also my mentor. So without wasting our time and any further ado, let's dive in and welcome Mr. Sudip Mukherjee. Welcome guys inside this podcast. Today we have Mr. Sudip Mukherjee with us. Welcome Sudip to our show.
Thank you, Shantu.
And I'm really excited to have you with us today. You started off your career in Indian Army and spent 21 years there. And after that, you start working in the field of personal development and you become a master of behavior analysis. So could you please share with us your journey from Indian Army to a behavioral analyst?
Okay, so while I was in the army, we did a lot of counter-terrorism. And as you know, counter-terrorism involves aspects of psychology. And I wanted to understand why people do what they do, and also to use it in various interrogation processes. That's when I did master's in psychology through correspondence as I was in the army. And once I did that, I realized that psychology theoretically is very different from what practical applications are. And I started hunting for something which would make my practical applications better. And that's when I found NLP, that's neuro linguistic programming. So I read through neuro-linguistic programming, and I decided that when I leave the army, that is after 20 years, we have a choice. And I knew that I would, venture out to do something on my own. So I found that NLP was something that I wanted to do. So I took a couple of courses, and I became an NLP practitioner and master practitioner. And then I joined SpiceJet for about 2 years and worked with people there. I realized that working with people in the army and working with people in the corporate world, there were a lot of similarities, and people behave in similar manners. So that's when I started my research. I left SpiceJet in December 2015, and from 2016 onwards, I've been working on my own, uh, taking trainings, conducting coaching sessions, and conducting my own research into how human behavior can be changed, can be influenced, and can be bettered. So that's been my journey.
That's awesome, sir. And so as far as the practicality is concerned, that's as you said that you studied psychology, and after that you are more focused into the practical side of the psychology. So if I compare between psychology, I mean mainstream psychology and NLP, so how do you differ it, and how NLP stands different from the modern conventional psychology, and how can it help people to overcome the challenges in as far as NLP is concerned?
So see, psychology starts from theory. Okay, you have a hypothesis, and you get data to support that hypothesis. What Richard Bandler and John Grinder did was they modeled what successful psychiatrists or therapists did, like Fritz Perls and Virginia Satir and Milton Erickson, and so on and so forth. So they started from what was successful and then made a model out of that, instead of starting from theory and collecting data to support that hypothesis. So NLP started from something which works. So if you start from the premise that this is something which has worked, how do I replicate this success? And that's what NLP is. NLP is of 1976 vintage, 1976 to 79. uh, there's been a lot of change in technology since then. The MRI machines have come in, EEGs have come in, transcranial Dopplers have come in, and our knowledge of how the brain functions has changed manifold. So what I do now is I have taken the changes that have come into the world neurologically and through neuroscience in the past 40 years, and added that to the NLP knowledge that Bandler and Grinder created. So what I teach now, or what I do now, is something called behavioral analytics. So it's not technically NLP, because NLP is 1976 vintage. This incorporates a lot that has gone into the body of knowledge that exists to mankind since the advent of technology.
So we can say that NLP has changed a lot. Means the it has advanced itself, as far as when it has launched earlier in 1970s 60s. So from there right now, there are a lot of changes have happened, and a lot of improvement have happened. So right now people have more resources.
Lot of changes have happened in the knowledge that we have. So when NLP was created, it was created from the premise of the knowledge that existed then, right? And the knowledge that exists now is different. For example, people talk about left brain and right brain. So that was the knowledge then. We now know that both hemispheres of the brain work in conjunction to make us do what we do. So it's not a left brain or a right brain or a mid brain. It's the entire brain which works together.
Yeah, that really makes sense. Even I also counter many trainers in different workshop. They mention that left brain and right brain, and after that, if I study neuroscience and all, they said completely different. Like whenever we do any task, our entire brain functions.
Correct.
So I can connect with. Well, recently you have launched your book named Two Steps Ahead. So what is Two Step Ahead?
Okay, so people, everything is based on communication. All relationships, whether it's a relationship between, spouses or siblings or parent and children, or if you take the professional sphere, between employees or between employers and employees, or between, vendor and client, or therapists and clients, or teachers and students. Everything is about communication, and it has been seen that most of the troubles that we have in our relationships is based on miscommunication. So two steps ahead is about uncovering the thoughts behind the language spoken. So to go from what is said to you to what is behind that, is this book. So if you read this book and start applying it, you will be communicating much better, much cleaner, and understand what people actually mean when they say something.
So this book is going to help people to improve their communication skill overall, and along with that, other aspects as well.
So when you say improve communication skills, generally the thought behind it is that they will be able to speak better. But communication is a two-way process. So not only will they be able to speak better, they will be able to understand better.
Uh-huh. And in your book, there is a specific chapter. This chapter, it talks about the language in business. So those who are young entrepreneurs or those who are already in business, so how can they get help from these specific chapters?
Okay, so what I have initially, when I started writing this book, it was as a support to the meta modeling that I teach in my workshops, and then I realized that it's such a powerful tool. It should be available to be employed in all contexts of life, and I work with business owners a lot. And in fact, in February, I had gone to the United States to speak at the University of Buffalo's Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership as to how to communicate better and how to crack the language code. So from there, I realized that uh, business owners also need to understand what to speak, not only in their communications with their clients but also in their emails, in their WhatsApp messages, in their advertisements, how to use language to get the maximum that they want out of any interaction.
That sounds really great. And since you have just mentioned that there is a specific term called meta modeling, so in order to understand for my listeners, so if you could explain what exactly you mean by meta modeling.
Okay, so whatever we think, uh, or whenever we speak, we think a lot of things, and if we would speak everything that we think of, we would keep talking the whole day. So what we do is we compress it by three different processes, and these processes are deletion, distortion, and generalization. And through these three processes, we convert our thoughts into language, and then we transmit. Similarly, anybody who listens to us, they use the same three processes, that's deletion, distortion, and generalization, in order to convert that what they hear into the thought. So for example, if I say in my hand I'm holding an apple, you would have created a picture out of it. Maybe that the color of the apple is green or red or anything. For all you know, I might be holding an iPhone in my hand and calling it an apple, right? Which is an Apple product. So these kind of conversational mistakes, or we call them as violations, can be undone by using something called the meta model, which is an NLP process.
Mhm. And you also mentioned here that you recently visited US and even the US, and also talked about the young entrepreneurs in the Buffalo College. So how was your experience over there, and what was your learning from there? Like how you find the difference between.
So I don't see any difference. So these were mid-level entrepreneurs, or which was earning from between $1 million to about $500 million per year. That was the turnover. That was the general category of business owners that I worked with, and I found them to be as dedicated and as passionate as business owners here in India. There was hardly any difference. The only difference is the way they went about their stuff. And I have not only spoken to in that college. I have done a lot of one-to-ones with several of them, and in fact, some of them I continue to work with online, and it's a wonderful experience. The difference, as you asked, not much. It's just maybe the language is different, but otherwise the passion, the dedication, the type of work ethic, all remains the same.
That's really awesome. One thing I just need to mention you that you have just mentioned you work a lot of work a lot of business people. So as working with this business group or business people, so what do you think? What are their major challenges, and how do you address them?
The major challenges in any business that I work with is people have an idea and they run with an idea. So they don't actually think about which is the correct customer segment for it, and what should be my pitch to this particular customer segment. They think that, okay, there's a shortage of, let's say, coaches in the world, and understand human beings, and therefore I will be a good coach. The point is, who would you be a good coach for? Who is your ideal client? So for example, you Shantu, I know that you worked in the training field for a long time. And so for you, I would suggest the best people to work with would be trainers, or trainers who want to make a shift from training to coaching. So those are the people. Unfortunately, anybody who wants to coach wants straight away to coach, CEOs and CXOs without understanding the context or having the experience to understand the problems that they might be facing. So I would, if I had a problem, I would go to somebody who's been in my place, who's done what I have done. And I would not ideally go to somebody who's from a completely different background, right? uh, that's what business owners need to understand, how to get to their ideal client segment. And most of the time businesses don't do well because they are trying to sell ice to the Eskimo.
So how do you address basically? So these challenges, I understand that when you working with them one on one or in a group, so you have major challenges with them. So how do you address?
So how do I address, when I speak to them? Every problem comes with a solution. So a person will come to me with a problem and a solution, and would want me to help them achieve that solution. The
Mhm.
problem in this type of thinking is that the solution that they have thought is not the correct solution. And if it were, they would have made it to work. So the first thing that needs to be addressed is that the solution that they think is optimal is actually not so. So they need to think differently and come up with a solution which is workable and which will solve the problem. How I do it? I use behavioral analytics.
How a person can get help if he analyze his behavior?
So if he analyzes his behavior, he'll know where he is going wrong. And by understanding where he is going wrong, he will be more aware of dealing with it the next time it happens. And that's when he will start doing things differently. As soon as he starts doing things differently, he will get different results. If he works with a person who is an analyst or a coach, they will be able to guide him to make fewer mistakes and reach the solution that they want earlier and faster.
Your training company is Anchor NLP,
That's it.
and I love the tagline of your company that "खोपरी जिसकी choice उसकी." So overall, if I translate, it means choice belongs to individual brain.
Absolutely.
So how do you come up with this simple yet effective catch line? So what is the thought behind this catch line?
Uh, okay, so this catch line was actually coined by Poonam Jalan, my associate in the company, and yeah, and she had done it for a different reason, because she had shaved off her hair, and somebody said that, why have you shaved off your hair? And she said that kopri jiski choice uski, then it's my head, I do whatever I want to, right? And I found that statement to be very, very effective in a different way, that it is my head, so I will do what I want, not only to my head but to my life. And that's exactly where most people go wrong when they go to a baba or go to a mentor. They expect the mentor or the baba to tell them what to do, and that actually does not empower them, it disempowers them. So most of my trainings, or in my coaching session, I ensure that the responsibility and the accountability always lies with the person working, because unless they are responsible for their results, it'll be half-hearted attempt, and therefore they'll not reach the results that they want. So corporate is choice, if you don't want to work on it, it's your choice, and then you must be able to face the consequences.
I completely agree with you here because I also attended your NLP workshop and I really found the difference how your course is really different from others. And based on this, I'm asking you one very important question that in training and coaching, people, I have found that they always give their statement or give their judgment, what they have understood after having a conversation. So, in this case, what is your specific advice for those coaches and trainers who actually try to be a coach, however, without understanding the basic elements or the fundamentals of coaching?
uh, no advice. The only thing which I will say is that learning never ends, and we continue to learn. And some things which we think are
Mhm.
sacrosanct and completely true, with more information and more thinking, we might find that what we knew earlier was wrong, and we should have the courage and the conviction to accept that we were wrong. And that's an essential ingredient of growing as a person, to accept when you when something that you thought was true with more information turns up to be okay. It was just a perspective. It wasn't the absolute truth. And and then you change the way you think. That's how any belief changes, when you see counter examples of what you thought, and evidence of that. So I my suggestion, not an advice, to all coaches would be to keep learning, uh, to keep seeking evidence. So what I you might remember, I kept telling in your course as well, is that don't accept what I tell you, test it. If you test it,
Yes.
you will start believing it. Once you
Yes.
believe it, you will be much more effective.
Fantastic. When I joined your NLP practitioner course, from there I came to know about your powerful program in body mind wellness. And it really fascinated me because when I came to know that people have cured themselves from diabetes, allergies, kidney failures, even cancer without having any medicine by just using their power of mind. So you also said one specific word called psychosomatic, means all diseases come from our mind. So could you please tell us something about the program and how people transform their lives at the end of this event?
uh, so the essential task of the brain is to keep you safe. And for example, how do you keep yourself safe is by addressing anything that bothers you, or any threat to you. Now if there is a cut in your, if you cut your hand or cut your foot or something while playing, you can see that wound. And when you see that wound, you address it, right? What happens to mental wounds that you have? How do you address them without being made aware of it? So psychosomatic diseases are the brain's way, or brain's method, of making you aware of an issue which has not been addressed by you, and it has not been treated by you. And that's why 98% of all diseases, in fact, if you see the linguistics of the word disease, it's dis-ease, means something which makes you uneasy. uh,
Hmm.
so 98% of all diseases are psychosomatic. That's our creations of your brain, based on things that you need to address and you haven't addressed.
So could you share stories that where people completely cured themselves and they have been a prolonged
Oh, there have been
kind of
many. Uh,
disease?
Many. So there was one girl who came to us who had a uh, she was allergic to many types of foods. So one of the things which we do is, when before the course is, we ask, do you have any dietary restrictions? And she had a long list of stuff which she could not eat. And during the course we worked on
Mhm.
them, and on the last day, she was very allergic to tomato. She had tomato salad, that's raw tomato, she ate on the last day of the course.
Mhm.
And she was fine. We have worked with people who have not conceived for long periods of time. There was a girl who came, they've
Mhm.
been trying for 5 years, nothing happened. There's a lady I know who came for 14 years, nothing had happened. And then after addressing the issues, they have conceived, and they've both of them have delivered, uh, beautiful and healthy babies.
And then I believe that when people change their lives from complete a conditioning part, from the new transformation happens with them. And I feel the kind of joy and the kind of feelings they have inside their heart, it was remarkable. And so under this note, how do you take it forward in this future, like this body mind awareness, this course? Because there are a lot of people, they are not really aware of it. People really don't, people still think that our brain is completely hardware, we cannot change our brain. So where however, we are living in an age where we can use all these resources. So in order to take it forward and in order to reach out a good number of people, a lot of people who are actually suffering, so what is your plan in upcoming future?
So there has been a lot of change in the last, let's say, 5 years. People have been are more open now to alternative forms of treatment than they were earlier. A lot
Yeah.
of healers are coming up, and sound healing and crystal healing,
Mhm.
various other things are coming up. Uh, so so it's good that people are open. uh, what I believe is that it's a manifestation of the brain, and if you can work on it, you can cure it, and I have hard evidence to do that. How do I let people know? Is people who do my courses and have been benefited from it, they share it with their friends. You can also have a look at my website, www.anchornlp.com, and that has testimonials from people who've been open enough uh, to talk about how they've been benefited. Or you can have a look at my YouTube channel, that's Sudip Mukherjee. uh, there you will find testimonials as well. And of course, you can contact me, or you can contact Poonam, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Many people have already joined your behavior analytics program that you are currently running online due to this COVID-19 situation. So, my question is to you that at the end of this program, what are the key areas they actually explored themselves, and what were their reactions at the end of it?
So again, the first thing that they say is that we did not know that there could so much could be done, right? So there's a sort of disbelief
Mhm.
at their achievement, which I saw in you as well. When you, on the last day when you worked with a client, there was disbelief in you,
Yeah.
right? And that's something which is an USP of all my programs, is when people realize how much power they have and how effective they can be. It's it's an exhilarating feeling for them, and that's something which I think everyone should experience, and that gives them the confidence to live life in a confident manner, in an empowered way, and be ready to help others around you.
You know what, I came to know Shudip from LinkedIn, and I read one of your articles, and all of a sudden I really found some these articles really different from the others, and it really struck my mind. So that point of time I wrote a message in LinkedIn and asked you one question: the difference between NLP and emotional intelligence. And you gave me a very straightforward, very tough answer to me. But there is no match between NLP and emotional intelligence. And you also said there is, we cannot add intelligence to our emotions. So, however, look around us. There are a lot of trainers, coaches, and there are different programs on emotional intelligence, and it's a kind of hot cake, I can say, in corporate industries. So how do you think then, why do you think that this emotional intelligence is actually it really doesn't work, and why it is not happening, it is really not matching as compared to NLP?
So there is no comparison. There is nothing called emotional intelligence, right? How do you, what is intelligence? It's, how do you define intelligence? It's itself a very abstract concept. So I have written an article recently talking about IQ and EQ, and how they are basically you know things that have been created, labels that have been created in order to uh, just be lazy, because as human beings we categorize patterns, right? And when we categorize patterns, like all South Indians are dark, or all Bengalis like fish, or all Kashmiris are fair. These are the things that we non naturally do. It, we naturally do in order to if I say, okay, I know a person whose name is uh, you know Ajay uh, Rana, and he's a Kashmiri, and you will say, Acha, if I ask you to describe him, you'll describe him as somebody who's tall, thin, and fair, right? And that's because the human mind wants to predict, and when we predict, we feel safe. When the prediction is met, we feel safe. So it's all about safety. Now, uh, emotional intelligence, it was created by somebody called Peter Salovey and John Mayer in 1990, when they wanted to uh, involve the ability to monitor feelings, and they created this word. Now, Daniel Goldman wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence in 1995, and somehow the HR fraternity took to it, and they thought that this is a template which we must use. And from then on, they started using that template, a label. The problem with labels are, as uh, you know you might say that this person has low EQ, by and your the basis of that is that he doesn't talk to people. He doesn't talk to people because in that context he doesn't like those people. There's nothing wrong with his emotions. He is very friendly to his family, to his friends, to others. At work he doesn't get along with those people, and automatically you label him as somebody with low EQ and treat him like that. It's just a label which is used to uh, you know control behavior, and I don't think it's something which should be done. It's harmful.
I really acknowledge this point, the way you explain here, this the difference between this why emotional intelligence and why people are behind that. And in the course, when I was a student of yours, when I was going through the courses in Kolkata. So the definition of HR, you mentioned something. You asked me this question, that what is the definition of HR? Then I said human resource. Then you said no, it's a human remains. So what makes you think this definition? So why do you define it's only human remains from your perspective, that in any organization right now that you consider it's human remains? So what makes you think this to come up this definition of HR?
Actually, when the human resource department was initially started, it was started with a very positive and very important task, that is to understand employees and to help the employees become better. Over a period of time, somehow HR department has just become people who write down policies and do a policing job, and not actually understand people. they their aim has become to make employees understand the management problems and not the other way around. uh, Even in my experience in the corporate world, and also now when I'm working with business owners, I find that employee welfare is just a term which is tick marked, and nobody actually gives a damn. And if you find uh, you know companies which actually look after employee welfare, they are booming. For example, Google is one company which is known for its employee welfare, and people would want to work for Google. The Tatas are known for employee welfare, and everybody would want to work for Tatas. So HR somehow has lost their focus, and they've become a tick mark department to get things done, so that a tick mark is created and not to bring about real change. That's my experience. That's completely my experience.
This question really comes to my mind, and it has been with my mind, and I thought to ask you. So this is an opportunity to ask you this question once again. That one of the articles you mentioned that multitasking is a myth. Brain cannot do multitasking. So however, my question is that uh, I am very comfortable when I do some work while playing music. So if I play a music and uh, type something or do my official work, so I am doing this multitasking here as well. Could you please explain?
Okay, so there, it's more complex than I think we understand. uh, you are essentially a high auditory person, which is why we are having a podcast and not a video shoot, right? uh, so therefore there is a lot of self talk that goes on in your mind. Why when you put on music, you're actually muting that self talk, and remain and then utilizing the remainder part of your processing systems, which is the 134 bits, to work on what you do. If there was that music not playing, your self talk would hinder your work. So for you that works. However, what are you actually focusing on? Are you focusing on the music, or are you focusing on the work? You're focusing on the work. So you can only focus on one thing at a time. So in the US, one a lady told me that I can walk and chew gum at the same time, and I asked her that, can you walk and chew gum while walking a tightrope? And she said, probably not. I said, no, you won't, because when you're on a tightrope, you will stop all other activity and focus only on keeping yourself safe. So you can talk on the phone and drive, because driving is now has gone into your unconscious competence. But if you have to really focus on something, you can only focus on one thing at a time.
I completely connect with your words here, and now I can understand what exactly going on inside my mind, and it really gives me the insight. And relating to this question, so people who are who are highly visual in this case, uh, to in order to process the information visually. So in that case, uh, my case, I mean to say, if they work and they listen to music, won't work in such situation.
No, it won't. It won't. They'll get
Hmm.
distracted.
So it depends on the person preference.
It depends. It depends on something called the hierarchy, which I am writing a book as of now, and
Hmm.
it should be out by the end of the year.
That's fantastic. So waiting for this book. So we have reached almost the last part of our interview, and so this part we called, it's a fast forward round. So in this round, I'm going to ask you some questions, and without any thought, you have to answer these questions. So are you ready for that?
Yes, absolutely.
One habit that you keep on practicing every day to bring your inner shift.
Uh, I read.
Three books you would recommend to my listeners.
Mm, three books, so that's difficult. Okay, one is Two Steps Ahead. Okay, one of the books that I've read recently, David Brooks, The Second Mountain,
Mhm.
um, and Richard Wiseman, 59 Seconds.
Mhm. So, here is the last question to you. But before asking you the last question, I recommend my listener please buy this amazing book, Two Steps Ahead, which is available in Amazon. And I'm quite sure the stuff you are going to get will be worth reading. And so, please go ahead and buy this book and share your experience.
It's also available on notionpress.com, and it's also available on Kindle now, and on Google Reads as well.
Kindly please share your contact if my listeners want to contact you and want to reach you out. What are the possible ways they can reach out? Hmm.
Best way is to go to my website www.anchornlp.com and just drop a mail there or drop a message there. I'll be available.
So, my last question to you, share one important advice to my listeners which help them to transform their lives.
Try to change one thing, the way you do one thing, uh, once a week. Once a week, do something differently. For example, if you are used to wearing your left shoe first and the right shoe second, tie the right shoe on first and the left shoe on second. What this will do, it will change your status quo or doing things in a particular way and make your brain more flexible. Once a week, change one thing, the way you do it differently. If you stir your tea clockwise, do it anti-clockwise. Simple stuff, it'll help you.
Fantastic advice from your side. It is going to help me as well, and then I believe I'm going to do this practice. I'm going to start off this practice today itself, and it's been an amazing interview with you, and it's been a phenomenal things that the stops you have just shared with us. Thank you so much, Sudip. Thank you very much with us for in this podcast.
Thank you very much, Ankit.
Thank you so much for listening to this Inner Shift podcast. You can subscribe the show wherever you get the podcast from. I believe you have learned something that would help you to open a new possibility in your life. I highly recommend his well-researched articles that he keeps on posting on Facebook and LinkedIn. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next. Till then, sit back, relax, and reflect on your inner shift.